Welcome to the D&D Fitness Radio Podcast, brought to you by your hosts, Don Saladino from New York City and Derek Hansen from Vancouver, Canada.
Yes.
Hey,
There he is.
what's happening, fellas?
I miss you. I miss you, brother. I was so happy to see you last week, by the way.
Yeah, same for me, man. My body was not, though.
So Billy, I want to introduce you. I've talked about Derek a lot when we were training. Derek's, in my eyes, if there's the running coach of running coaches, it's Derek. So he knows a lot of history on you, obviously, and he's heard a lot about you because I've spoke about you for years. We've been doing this podcast now. I think we're almost 100 episodes in, so it's been a lot of fun for us.
Well, thanks for taking your time to get to me. Okay, you know, if you're 100 in, you can go fuck yourself.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's always one of those things. I never want to.
I mean, unless this is a celebration and you've been waiting till 100 to get to me. Sorry,
we're gonna call this. Today's gonna be 100. Derek, let's just call it 100 today.
Okay.
The hell with
Done.
everyone else.
Done.
Fuck everyone else. Today's 100. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing pretty well, man. Thanks. How about yourself?
Looks beautiful over there, by the way.
Well, I had to get out of the house because Will's doing virtual school in there, and I was like, you know, I'm going to be doing a podcast with Don, and he was like, "What the hell, Dad? How am I going to be able to do school?
Tell that meathead to get lost. Tell Don to get out of here."
I was like, all right, listen, I don't have time to talk to you, 17-year-old. I'm going to go outside.
It's unbelievable. So Derek, Billy, Derek. I'm happy.
Nice to meet you, Derek.
Yeah, I actually, you wouldn't remember me, but I met you at Don's gym one time, and then I went to see your show, Harry Clark,
We did.
a couple of months later. Yeah, so that was really a big deal. So,
Oh, well, awesome to meet you again.
So Derek was in there working with Benicio, which I don't know if I'm supposed to mention or not, but I'm mentioning it anyway. So the hell with it. And
To run?
He was in there. No, Benicio's not a runner, I don't think. So.
I was going to say I'm desperate to see him run. I mean, as soon as it came to mind, I thought, oh, please tell me that's happening.
He's usually chasing and killing people, but I think he walks slowly.
He walks slowly. He does, exactly. He does the classic Mike Myers chase.
I love it. Oh, so wait, how long? So I was trying to think back. You and I have been working together for over a decade.
Definitely.
Has to be now. Maybe closer to. God, you're one of my first. I mean, you're literally like, I think 12. It's got to be 12 years. I mean, can you?
I could look back in the calendar and find it, but I'm sure that sounds about right to me.
It sounds about right. I mean, you came in. You were like a runner, remember? And then you came
I remember.
In golf.
I used to run. That was the only way that I exercised. I run and do push-ups and sit-ups, and that was it. And that began when I was in college. You know, in high school, I played a couple of different sports very poorly, but that was the thing that, you know, kept me in any kind of shape. And then when I was in college, I discovered Pizza Hut delivers late at night. And I would put away.
I miss Pizza Hut. I mean,
I know.
It's
I would
so
put away
but it's so good.
A couple of those in my freshman loneliness as I adapted, and so then, you know, I discovered, all right, I have to start finding ways to exercise, because I remember trying for intramural wrestling, because I wrestled when I was in high school, and I got put on my back in about 35 seconds. And I thought, all right, well, I'm outclassed here at a big D1 university, even in an intramural, so I better find something else. And of course, it was UNC, so everybody plays basketball. Mm-hmm. I didn't play basketball up until that point, but I learned because, I'm 5'9", and they didn't exactly recruit slow, uncoordinated guys who can't shoot for basketball, especially if they're short. And so I started playing pickup games with a bunch of friends of mine and loved that game. I mean, I really, really began to become invested in that. And when I went to graduate school, I'd play pickup games whenever I had a break in between. Once that was gone, once I didn't have access to those gyms anymore, the only thing that I could think really to do was just to start running. So I ran as a course of, like every couple times a week maybe, or you go for a couple weeks without doing anything, you're like, all right, get off my ass and do a little bit of a run. Started to get into it a little bit more, and then when I got Without Limits, obviously that became I became thinking about it in a different way. There were two aspects to doing that movie that immediately come to mind. One of which, I wasn't allowed to run more than 400 meters at a time. They were like, you cannot be hurt, so don't go out there testing yourself by yourself just because you want to see what's, because I'm competitive. Don knows me very well. I'm very competitive, and obviously when it comes to quantifying things, and specifically with running, when you're only quantifying your own will, really at a certain point, because all of these guys who are running at such a high class, the things that are separating them are minuscule. Those moments, that make up a 400 meter victory are just so minuscule, unless you're talking about somebody who is like far superior physiologically. Most of them have to do with timing and will. And so the guy that I was playing, obviously he was interested in expressing his will through running. So, that was one introduction I had to it, but I wasn't doing it for my own personal fitness. And I wasn't doing it for my own mental well-being, because I was trying to preserve my body so that we could do the actual shoot. And so it was all interval training. So it wasn't until after that. And in fact, it wasn't until the last day of photography for running, we still had some more dramatic scenes to play, that I actually went for a run, and I was able to go for a run on Preece Trail. They have a trail in Eugene called Preece Trail, which is beautiful. I think it runs along the Willamette River, and it's just gorgeous out there by myself. And I think that's when I really started to discover the meditative quality to running that then became my real attachment to it. At that point, I stopped using it really as a way to stay fit physically, but as a way to stay fit mentally, because at a certain point in every run, I would reach that moment where I was dead, and it was an option for me to either breathe through it, muscle through whatever it was. And I became super attached to that, because that was a personal competition. I didn't need anybody else. After doing that for, I don't know, I'm 52 now. If we met when I was 40, Don, I probably did that for 12 years, or something like that. And Don opened his gym, and I played golf. And it was close to my apartment. So I went there originally so I could, hit golf balls during the winter. And all I would use was the treadmill. And I met Don, and we talked some, and Don was always like, come train, bro. And I was like,
is that what I sound
man.
like? I was like, you bro, come on.
No, that was my
like,
gentle version. That was my gentle version. What it really sounded like, come train with me, bro. Come on, what the fuck is wrong with you? No, so I was like, I'm not really into the training part of it. Being an actor, I'm not looking for strength. And really, flexibility and endurance are the things that it shape me as a performer more than being buff. So it wasn't until and it was funny, I was having a particularly stressful summer, and I went out for a run, and I just kept running, because I couldn't get to that point, that kind of cleared my mind. And I ended up tearing like a little ligament in my toe. And it was just annoying enough that I couldn't run. And so I went reluctantly, hat in hand, to Don. And I was like, say, man, so do you have any exercises I could, like, you just point me in a direction, do a couple things. I can't really run right now, and I need to get my, heart rate up and stuff. He was like, just work out with me, man. I was like, all right, here's the thing, Don. I run because I can't talk to anybody. You understand? I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want you and I having a conversation. He's like, shut up. Sign up. He's like,
I love the voice.
Shut up right now. Sign up. We're gonna get an hour together.
You were already signed up. This is what I'm
saying. He was like, you're not gonna say a word, and I'm gonna beat your ass for an hour. And I'm telling you, after that one time, I was completely hooked. On working out with Don.
And really funny on that, and I'm going to pass it over to Derek. I saw Billy in Without Limits. So I opened the club in 2005. I want to see, Without Limits came out when, in like the late 90s?
Yeah, late 90s, probably 97, 98, something like that.
And ironically, if you ask me, like the number one inspirational movie that I would watch, like in the background on the treadmill, I needed to get jacked up for, it was this movie. And I fell in love with the movie. I fell in love with the character. I didn't know much about Pre before I actually saw the movie. I also then right after went and saw Jared Leto's. Sorry, Jared, it sucked, but it was
absolutely not. I don't condone that kind of talk, Don.
Jared, it wasn't nearly as good. Sorry, but then what was interesting was when you came in and we became friendly. You actually, it was very confusing out of the gate, because I saw you a lot in that role, and then I saw you come in to train, and you were very similar to that guy. It was almost like, was he even really acting? Because you remember at times, Derek, at times I would literally have to grab him and be like, dude, like slow down. I need you to take a breath for a minute. Like he'd go. And then I remember going to see him on Broadway, the show called Arcadia, which is like a 3-hour long show where he's playing like I think it was two different characters in like two different centuries.
Right? Go on. Sorry, go on.
Am I right or am I wrong? I mean,
there were two different plays happening at once. No, but yes. I actually did that. I did the play once before in 1995, where I played the younger version, and the version you saw, I played the older guy. Yeah, so I actually did do both parts, but not at the same time.
But then not to blow smoke, because Billy knows we don't like to do that much, because we normally rip on each other. But when I was in the crowd watching him in not Harry Clark, when I was watching him in Arcadia, I forgot I was watching Billy. And I saw him in a different, and granted, like, yeah, we saw Inventing the Abbot, saw all these other movies back then where you played a much different role. But when I saw you on Broadway, that was like, to me, that was like next level. That was next level stuff. And
right.
So I was very proud of you. But Derek, enough talking out of me now. Pass it to Derek.
Yeah, like I wanted to ask about, the specific preparation. Like, sure. Obviously you have a preparation for every movie you do, but if you're going to run and you're doing all these reps, and like you said, you don't want to get hurt. I mean, how much prep went into preparing for the role? And then, I went on a couple of message boards where people are geeking out, like letsrun.com, and they're saying, oh, I heard Billy ran like 26-second 200s and a 54-second 400, which are exceptional times, I'll say. And I was impressed, not knowing what your previous background was, but those are solid times.
Yeah, they don't sound accurate to me at all in I appreciate my mom getting on there and boosting my time under the pseudonym of Crudup fan number one. I don't actually remember my times at all, but the way in which we prepared was rigid. The woman who trained me, Patrice Donnelly, she was a hurdler in the 1976 Olympics, I believe. And she also knew Pre, most importantly, she knew running and she knew movies, because she did Personal Best with Robert Towne, who was also the director. And she knew that you can't have a middle distance runner's appetite for running when you're shooting a movie, because a middle distance runner wants to grind it out, and they, that is the heart of the middle distance runner, as far as I could learn in my short time there. Is the grinding it out of it is that's the poetry. And so she said, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, I'm playing this guy. So what do we do? Well, we're going to do what you always do. You're going to fake it. So what we're going to do is we're going to train you, and it's not going to be easy, don't get me wrong, but we're going to train you for 400-meter intervals. We're going to train you for 200-meter intervals. Yes, you will be running at 4-minute mile pace, but but you will have to do it over the course of an 8-hour day. But I can't have you trying to run full out, because we're not going to shoot. We can't shoot. It's funny. The track is really interesting place to shoot. What you discover in the world of movie making is the peripheral world completely deconstructs any reality that you're trying to get within the lens. It's just a bunch of people sitting around with, technical things, eating their lunch, and you have no chance of staying in the world of the movie if, even the boom operator drops the microphone in. The whole illusion is blown, right? So if you try to do a 360 of the field, you're going to end up seeing all of the BS that is not there, which is the fans are not actually there. You can't redress the entire Eugene, Oregon field to look like 1970. It's just not practical. So you do it in pieces. You set up this piece over here, and that 200 meters looks like it. Then you shift it over here. Well, during that shift, after you've done 6 or 7 takes of running at 4-minute mile pace, with these, and I was running with guys who were, spectacular Olympic world-class athletes. And trust me, keeping up with them was not an easy task for me at all. But Patrice was so rigid about how to train that she kept me healthy the entire time. And obviously also, I didn't come with any kind of runner's form, and there was a very specific cadence to the way that Steve Prefontaine ran, which was one of the things that made him exciting to watch and kind of probably awful to run with. That was something that was in my wheelhouse as an actor. That's what we do all the time, is try to mimic stuff. So I studied tape with her over and over again. We talked about my own physiology, why I couldn't make certain movements, why I had to control certain aspects of my body because they seemed so totally different than him. What it meant to run out with your chest out in front, like why there were features of his form that were not ideal for setting a good pace, but were ideal in showing the intention of his heart. And so we wanted that to come across physically at the same time as keeping me healthy. So I was exercising and running all of the time, but all interval stuff. I was studying it. I actually had to put on some weight because Robert Town, he didn't think that I had a big enough ass. Basically, that was it. He was like, "You need to have strength in your glutes," and I'm like, "You understand, Robert? I'm an actor, okay? We gotta keep fit. We don't think of these things, things this way." And so I actually started working out with a guy in LA to kind of try to boost and build muscle first, and then Patrice and I started to work on his form. Then we would film it, and there were so many various stages of growth and understanding and pain to learning how to do that. Like, for instance, transferring from the running shoes that I understood to track shoes. I mean, man, the day that we did that, I woke up the next morning and I tried to get out of bed and I fell over because my calves didn't work. And I immediately called Patrice and I'm like, "What have you fucking done to me? Run, I can't walk." And she came over and we did stem and stuff for a while. And of course, you recover a little bit. But that was really the approach was to contain and focus how we were going to make sure that I stayed healthy enough. And Bobby, obviously, it wasn't for me; it was for production. It wanted production to keep going, and if I go down, production goes down. But the thrill of being with these world-class athletes for somebody like me who has a competitive streak was really hilarious, because they could kick my ass at any time. And I'm supposed to be playing the guy who can kick their ass. So occasionally we would come, I would overextend myself, or because I would try to, keep up with the pack in a certain way, or somebody. There were even, I remember Jeremy Sisto at a certain point. I forget who he was playing. I can't remember, but
Wasn't Frank Shorter? Frank Shorter, or no?
It might have been Frank
Yeah.
Shorter. It might have been Frank Shorter, who I think also was on the movie. But
yes,
yeah. Really nice. I mean, it's incredible the opportunities you have as an actor in situations like this, to actually be with Olympians and world-class runners and athletes like that, who are going to give you advice. And he was certainly one of them.
Frank Shorter. Sorry to interrupt. I just
Thank you.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was they had a race where Pre overtook him in the last 50 meters or something, that was in the movie. And unbeknownst to me, we had done a couple of takes or whatever, where I break through the tape. There was another coach on it, or I don't remember who it was. It definitely wasn't Patrice, but turned to Jeremy and said, "Don't let him catch up with you. Let's see Billy go full out." And I'm like busting my ass, and I'm like, the fuck is Sisto doing? Holy shit. Like, I'm not, and I try catching him. I can't catch him. And we get to the tape, and he goes through the tape, but he wasn't prepared for the tape either. So both of us are sort of bumbling over each other afterwards. So I was not in competition with, any of these guys. Clearly, I don't have that kind of athletic gift. So I don't know what the numbers were. I do know that when it was all over, I was like, all right, movie's done. I'm going out to the track myself. I'm going to see if I can do I'm going to see what I can do in a mile, what time I can run a mile in. And I'm telling you, I got to that last 400 meters and I could not see straight. I couldn't breathe. And I came in at 5:25.
Wow.
And
wow.
and didn't walk for, I don't know, 3 months.
That's a legit time. I mean, I don't know.
That's the only time I remember.
That's a legit time. And I obviously, I mean, there's so many things we can focus on here. I think I think one last point on the on that movie was, I mean, I don't know if Derek wants to jump in and say anything else, but the relationship with you and Donald Sutherland Bowerman, I thought was incredibly interesting, because I think Donald Sutherland's like, I mean, all the way back to Animal House, when he's the professor smoking the joint.
It's amazing.
To his voice, to just seeing him in that movie. Obviously never met Bill Bowerman, never even saw any tape of him or heard him speak, but just assuming, like, right after watching that performance, you almost assumed that's what Bowerman was exactly like. And I was always like, how did he do that? Even though you never met Bowerman, it was just the connection between you and him. You could tell you guys had a special relationship.
Yeah, well, Donald Sutherland is a supremely gifted actor who I have loved my entire life. And, there was a big portion of my participation in that movie where I felt way over my head. I mean, way over my head. And, well, obviously working with him was one of them. And one of the ways that you compensate for being in over your head when you're younger is with confidence, which worked perfectly for Pre. So I just barreled through everything. I just like, I'm working with Donald Sutherland, fine. That's the way it is. Yep, we're doing scenes together, great. Like midway through the scenes, I'm like, oh my God, it's Donald Sutherland. Meanwhile, we had Bill Bowerman on the film. He came twice to visit the set. I'm sure he talked extensively with Donald, because Donald works extremely hard and is.
Oh, I didn't know. I thought Bowerman passed well before the movie. I thought he passed.
No, it was shortly after.
It was shortly, yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, so that's my mistake.
No, it was shortly after, and I met him once that I can remember, and I remember him being on set another time. And he had a presence. He had the kind of mythological presence, because obviously we were in Eugene, Oregon. So there are people who, it's like the waves part, when he walks through, and he also carried himself in such a way that felt impressive. And I think it was because he really, the movie attempts to explore it in some ways. He knew what he was doing insofar as with his life. He knew he was trying to encourage a certain kind of athletic expression. And I found that really impressive isn't the right word. It's kind of moving in a way. And the relationship that he had with Pre, obviously Robert Towne explored extensively with Bill to try to get at what the essence is of it. It's funny, Robert used to say this often when I would be, combative about something, because I was like, that's not fucking real. That is not what happened. He's like, Billy, God damn it. We're not going for real. We're going for the truth. And that was to me at the heart of what he does as a writer is, in a 2-hour narrative, you don't have time for day-to-day stuff. You have to try to compress things in a way that allow people to have insight into the spirit of a person, particularly if you're doing something like this. And running for Robert was religion. He would constantly, I'd say, Robert, I don't understand what happens in this moment. He'd go, Rudyard Kipling once wrote, and I'd be like, oh shit. And he'd give me a 2-paragraph quote on the heart of running as, dictated by Rudyard Kipling. But he had these just lined up left and right. And their relationship, Bowerman and Robert Towne, I think contributed a great deal to the scenes that happened between me and Donald Sutherland, because Robert Towne was able to distill, at least as far as he was concerned, what was at the heart of Bowerman's coaching and why that was an interesting conflict for both him and Pre that they had to resolve in real time. And we get to witness, the birth of this young man through the eyes of this veteran who is shaken by his birth as well. So that it was a beautiful thing to be able to explore narratively, and I just had tremendous esteem for him.
Well, yeah. Go ahead, buddy.
One of my favorite scenes, and I use it. I teach courses on running, and I use the scene where he pulls you aside and says, your hips have to be underneath you, and then lift your knee. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like
at the point of deepest penetration.
Yeah. I think I was teaching some kids and I had to edit that part out, but just get the hips underneath, right? And it just, I'm like, yeah, that's it right there. That was the best interaction.
At the point of deepest penetration.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, I've heard that from Saladino now over the past decade, numerous times. It was, I remember that so vividly, because obviously too, you feel, I mean, one of the things about acting is, particularly if you've spent some time training, is trying to understand your body in motion. That's what was that.
Welcome to COVID. Welcome to the COVID podcast room. This is Don Saladino and his 2 crazy dogs.
That's hilarious. Part of being an actor is understanding your body in space, right? So when you're on stage, understanding what movement what translates the story the best, and how you can transform your body to create different characters, etc. And that one piece of advice about running that was written in the thing, I wasn't, when I read it, I was like, oh, that sounds like that might be a little bit of bullshit there, more of, Robert kind of. And then we're actually playing the scene and I'm like, wow, that really does free it up there a little bit. My stride just changed by several inches there. That's pretty weird. Okay, good advice.
So that's got to be, listen, that's got to be almost like a dream come true you're there to act, but to be able to work with these, I mean, you just mentioned Patricia Donnelly, who was in what, did you say the 75 Olympics? And then I want to pivot because we could talk about this movie. I mean, for those of you out there who have not seen Without Limits, I put it as my top 5 favorite movies of all time. I've seen it 1,000 times. But there was another really funny story, Derek, I was telling you the other day about Billy, because Billy plays the guitar. And, you know, when I was working with him the other day, we were on, he's shaking his head. He always says he plays, I don't play well. I'm like, BS. He does everything well. But in the background, I see the guitar, and I'm like, how is it? Yeah, I'm playing a little bit, blah, 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 blah. And I'll never forget the time when we were talking about the movie Almost Famous. And I said, well, did you take guitar lessons? He goes, yeah, I did. I'm like, who'd you take it from? And he said,
Peter Frampton. I mean, doesn't
because that's
everybody?
normal. That's
Doesn't
normal.
everybody do their guitar training with Peter Frampton and
I
their
do.
running training with Patrice Donnelly and
Sure.
Frank? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It is absurd, you know, when you get to have the opportunity to learn in brief from people the essence of what they're trying to do, because nearly, I would say, all of these formidable people that I've had the opportunity to interact with, yes, they want you to get the technical parts of it right, but what they are most possessive of is the spirit of what they do. What I want, like, you to be able to translate, Billy, is the guts it took to run that last 50 meters that way. What I want to translate to you, Billy, is the soul it takes for you to throw that solo in there. You know, those are the things that the professionals think about, and it is quite difficult to translate it, because the thing that allows them to arrive at that moment is all their technical expertise. You can't put that stuff on display with world-class people if you don't have the technical expertise. And so one thing that you can do, a trick that you can do really, is back to what Patrice said. We're just going to do it in short intervals. And when we put it all together, it will appear as though there's a connection. And it's the same with guitar. I worked on one solo for 2.5 months. The specific fingering of a, I don't know, 4-second solo, just so Cameron could pan from my hands up to my face to try to sell that I was playing the guitar. You would not have wanted to hear what I sounded like when I did that, but it looked exactly right, you know? So that's the kinds of things that we try to do to make it appear as though we can do them, but we get access to people with incredible skill and knowledge, and they're all so generous because they have a stake in it too. They want their sport or their passion to be displayed with some authenticity, and so they bring their guts and their intelligence and their passion as a gift to you, you know. And so it's incredibly rewarding.
Well, yeah.
I mean, go ahead, Dave. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, like the running thing, and then now the guitar. Like, do you feel compelled? Like, I was taught by this guy, I gotta keep going with this. Like, I gotta, you know.
Good question.
Totally. And you know, the truth is, I did do that with running for so long, and then Don helped me through. Well, actually, he changed my perspective. Now I don't use running in the same way I use working out now. I haven't gone for a run in quite some time. It's probably been 3 months since I've been for a run.
And that does not mean I'm against running, not at all. But I think we just kind of made you a little bit more well-rounded, and you understood the importance of strength and mobility.
The truth is, not only does it work incredibly well for me mentally, physically, but it works for me in my work, because I am more flexible. I have more endurance. I couldn't have done Harry Clark had I not been in some kind of physical shape to maintain the endurance, because that was just an endurance job, you know, flexibility and endurance.
That was that was 90 minutes and you played what, about 21 different characters, or what was
Yeah,
it?
it was if I did the show correctly, it was an hour and 18 minutes. If I was
Okay.
indulgent, it was an hour and 22. If the audience hated me, it was an hour and 17. But I mean, we had it down to a science. And I probably paid 15 characters or something like that. I don't know the exact number. But yeah, if I was only running, I likely wouldn't have had the same level of physical flexibility and endurance for that specific kind of job. You know, there's some as I say, like, it's been a while since I've ran, but it's only been 3 months. You know, like, I still run from time to time. It's just not the way that I the way I would put it is, say, get right mentally. You know, that's the thing that was really crucial to me before about running, is that's how I got right mentally. And now I work out with Don and meditate to get right mentally. So, you know, the meditative quality of it is still there. That, you know, that, and I think anybody who runs knows that moment when you can only hear your footsteps and your breathing, and everything else is air. You know, like it's it's singular space. You know, that to me is a lot like meditating, and sometimes like Don yelling in my ear.
Yelling in his ear. Actually, you know what? We would have Billy and I, like, very, you know, our music tastes are very similar. So Billy, anytime you come into the gym, what would immediately come on? Say it.
Zeppelin,
Exactly.
baby, Zeppelin. I
Led
mean,
Zeppelin.
you
It
know,
was it was clockwork.
there would be some hardcore, you know, like uh, gym rap music going on, and then I would walk in, and it would give Don license to put on some rock and roll. So
We
he
just
would put
loved
on
it.
a Zeppelin playlist. Yeah, that was great.
And at first, someone argued one day, and they were like, "Well, why does why do we have to change the music to that?" I'm like, "It's Zeppelin." I'm like, "That's the universal code for music. It's like you could play that anywhere." And the guy looks at me and he goes, "They're overrated. Stop." And my sales advisor was standing right there. JT was right there. And I said it jokingly, of course, but it came out very serious. And I turned to JT, I go, "JT, revoke this gentleman's membership and please escort him to the door." And then he just looked at me and I started laughing. I said, "Do me a favor, don't ever say that in here again." And I just walked off. He was like, "Is he
That's
serious?"
hilarious. Well, and to bring it back full circle, well, you got the dogs, I got the helicopters here in LA.
I love it.
But it was Cameron Crowe that got me passionate about Zeppelin. I knew Zeppelin before, but I wasn't a music aficionado or a rock and roll, purist or enthusiast or whatever. And I listened to Zeppelin almost nonstop for about 4 years after that. It was annoying for everybody but me. But yeah,
Doesn't get old.
it doesn't get old for me. No.
It doesn't get old. I mean, Derek and I got on the conversation of vinyls the other day. Derek, you want to segue into this a little bit? Because we're all gonna get a good little laugh over this. Derek started collecting vinyls recently.
Well, yeah, I broke out the old turntable. It's like 30 years old, and then I told Benicio about it. Now he sends me like vinyl every
Oh, come
Christmas, right?
on. Oh, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, and then it's like, okay, I got to get back into Bob Dylan and all he likes all American rock and roll stuff, right? And I was like, oh, okay. But then I started doing it, and I'm like, oh, I gotta put it on the record, and I gotta wait, and I gotta listen to the whole thing. And it kind of blew my mind, because now
Right.
you can just pick whatever you want. And so I like that process now. And I don't know if you do the same thing, but it's
I didn't even
certainly.
think about that, man. That's amazing. No, I don't at all. But the actual act of the analog it makes it a different experience. It creates an event. You know, actually, it makes it more like theater. You are compartmentalizing a moment that has a very specific beginning and end that you can't interfere with if you want to get the entire narrative. It makes me want to get back into vinyl now, actually.
Well,
So Billy, we were just talking about, with vinyls and the packaging. I miss the days when I was a young kid. I used to bike into town, going to the record store. There was 2 record stores, and I was at the point where I was still kind of purchasing records, but we were, you had cassette tapes, and then we got into CDs. And then when CDs came in, I remember actually owning a record player, and then like suddenly you're throwing them out. But there's something I miss a lot about going in and purchasing, an album, right? And like opening it up and appreciating it and looking at it and reading the songs on the list. And then you used to open the inside and they would have lyrics in there where you can actually kind of read along.
Right. And the liner notes, right. Do you remember the first album you bought?
Yeah, I do actually. I think it was Van Halen 1984.
Oh,
and I remember
awesome.
my mom and dad. So I wasn't driving then. I was probably 7 years old, 8 years old. But I remember hearing the song "Jump" and my mom bringing me to the store to buy it.
That's freaking awesome.
What about you?
Cameron was obsessed with liner notes because for him, the stories were one of the most exciting aspects to songwriting. How people came up with songs, what it took to bring that idea through a creative collaboration, where a song stood in the anthology of a musician's career. Context was so important for him because, the music, when it's about the music, which it always was for him, doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists as a part of this entire pageant of, whether it's the genre is rock and roll or music in general. So putting it in context is a crucial element. And the liner notes, and as somebody like Cameron, who is such an incredible writer, that was the touchstone for him to how to access an album. And I'm sure he wrote tons of stuff. Man, I don't know if he still has it, but right after his production company, by the way, is called Vinyl Films. And cool. Right after the movie, they started producing albums, and whether they were reproductions or reimagining, and he would send them to me all the time. And so I have a catalog of 10 to 15 really dope albums with like Cameron's additional liner notes, or with the Vinyl Films Productions liner notes, or it's something that you guys are inspiring me to open up.
Do you guys remember your first album? I mean, I'm almost positive mine was Van Halen 1984. Can you recall yours?
I'm embarrassed to say I think it was Kiss Double Platinum.
That's amazing. It's incredible.
Mine was Off the Wall. And
wait, Off the Wall by Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson,
yeah.
And then I think Pegasus, Steve Miller. Is it Steve Miller? Pegasus.
I was going through so my kids are really into snowboarding, and we have this album and we call it like our mountain album, right? It's when we get on the chairlift when we were away, we put it on, and my kids are 13 and 12, but like I'm going to read off some of the names right now that we have on here: the Eagles, Led Zeppelin, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Fleetwood Mac, the Allman Brothers, Norman Greenbaum, Bob Seger, Don McLean, Joe Walsh, the Doobie Brothers, Rolling Stones. I mean, the band.
You're taking me right back to 77.
It's awesome.
That's amazing.
Is it amazing? It makes me happy. And music nowadays, it's just, I can't get that type of connection. I'm not saying that there's bad music nowadays, but it's kind of ironic that when I graduated high school in 1995, the favorite group was Led Zeppelin, and today I'm still listening to Led Zeppelin. It's just, I mean, right, Derek?
One of my favorite moments, with my son, his friend Julian was over at our apartment. They were, hanging out and stuff. And this, I want to say that 7, 8, somewhere in there, maybe just when they start getting into the idea of music and, remembering songs and lyrics and stuff, not the like school music, but actual, like their parents' music and stuff. and so I had been introducing them to Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven, in no small part because it's a long song and I didn't have to make any choices for 8 minutes. And so I remember getting in the car because we're going to take Julian home, and they turned to me and they said, hey, how long is the drive? And I said, it's, about 10 minutes or so. And they're like, yes, Stairway to Heaven. And I put on Stairway to Heaven. We have enough time. It was amazing. And I was like, I'm so proud of you guys.
No, it is a good feeling, Derek. I don't know, Derek. What are your kids listening to? Are you kind of?
I am so hard now trying to push this vinyl. Like, this is a record. This is how you play it. This is how you advance a song. And when I die, this is all yours. All this vinyl is yours. And they're like, what? I got Spotify. What the hell?
Why would I do that?
Yeah, but and then now I'm trying to make that connection to Led Zeppelin, and I have the kids all playing acoustic guitar. We bought them electric guitar. We watch Rudderless, which everybody wants the soundtrack for that now. I'm like, okay, we're moving in the right direction. And then to get them to Zeppelin, I've had to use the Beastie Boys to kind of get those samples and get the John Bonham. Yeah.
That's a great connection.
I'm baiting them.
Who, by the way, Billy, Mike Diamond, Mike D was a Drive member, and he's going to be coming on our podcast in the next few weeks. So I went. I don't know if you saw the new. I guess you'd call it like a documentary. It was him and Ad Rock. They got on stage and they spoke about their best friend who, obviously passed away to cancer. But it was an interesting. I don't know what you'd actually call it. It was like a documentary, but they were almost on stage like.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It came out in April of 2020, so it's pretty new, but it's their whole story, and it's outstanding to hear how these guys were like, we had no talent. We didn't know what we were doing, and then out of nowhere, we just kind of created the sound, and we're traveling all over the world, and we're like the most famous things on the planet. It was like so bizarre.
It's funny, man. I was late to the party on the Beastie Boys, and it's a shame because Mike's son was in school with my son.
Yeah.
And so, I constantly wanted to be able to go over and say, hey man, I've been a long time, fan. I was there from the beginning, but I wasn't, because my first love was Grandmaster Melly Mel and the Furious Five. And there
He's laughing. I love it.
And so to me, like, the Beastie Boys were, usurpers. There was already the tried and true. We had Run, and needless to say, after 10 years of my obstinance or whatever, my friends were much like you, Don. Billy, stop being a dick. Listen to them. Freaking awesome.
How I sound.
But if you read the book, if you read their book and you do the documentary, they have the same influences. Like they'll tell you in that book that they like the same guys. Yeah, the same.
I'm totally sure. I mean, it was again the stupidity of youth on my part. I wanted ownership over something. At that time, because nobody else in my group was listening to Grandmaster Melly Mel. I mean, so I felt like very possessive, of my 5 seconds of discovering something that some of my friends hadn't discovered yet. I'm never on the vanguard about anything. I'm never there at the beginning, and I always miss it when it hits its resurgence. Everyone has a resurgence for the new generation. I'm always at the lull in between. When it is the least popular is when I typically discover it, and I have nobody to celebrate with.
It's like me and Bitcoin.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Well, listen, Billy, we want to be sensitive to your time because you've already given us so much of it. But we had, one last thing that we want to bring up about the morning show. So you have this new series on Apple TV, right?
Right on, man.
Can you talk about it a little bit? Because it's
absolutely
unbelievable.
It's why I'm out here in LA right now. Is we're trying to shoot season 2, but obviously, for me it was what do they say, out of the frying pan into the fryer, because COVID has blown up here and it's made working very difficult. So we're kind of stopping and starting. But Carrie Aaron wrote this really, really fascinating story and series of scripts about morning news and the arrival of the future of a more equitable society, and what the practical aspects of that actually mean to people in heightened positions of power. And so it was sort of in the midst of the Me Too and the Time's Up movements that she was trying to explore in real time. And Jen had, who I knew through mutual friends, and we shared a colleague that we work with. She came and saw Harry Clark, and several of her producing partners were with her as well, Kristen Hahn and Amanda Anker. And they said afterwards, there's a couple of parts in this show, and we really liked you and Harry Clark. Would you read it and be interested in it? And so there was this one part of this weirdo network executive that he had tons to say, and incredible. And by the way, the Bitcoin is a phenomenal analogy, because he is the kind of guy who could have sold you on Bitcoin, but before Bitcoin was actually quite a thing. He is sort of a futurist, a visionary in a way, but lives inside his brain in a way that is so eccentric, it's laughable at times. But he's got a killer instinct and such an incredible social calculus. He knows where to fight and when not to fight, and when to provoke and when to retreat. And I just thought it was a spectacular piece of writing that explored this sort of capitalist ego. This guy seemed like capitalism incarnate. And if you live in New York, you run into these guys every day. And particularly if you go to charitable events, there's some organizations that I work with, and they want actors there to get pictures and stuff like that, but the people who are funding it are people who have achieved in a myriad of different ways. But certainly over the past 20 years, the finance industry has occupied a great deal of the charitable contributions. So I meet a lot of these finance guys, and so many of them have this kind of, I haven't failed yet, so there's no evidence that I will fail, so let me just allow you to enjoy the company of my own thoughts. And they will go on and on and on and on. And also brilliant minds, fascinating minds. But the crucial aspect is the confidence of having not failed in a dynamic way yet. And so that brought a whole level of joy to playing the part. That being said, that character speaks a lot faster than I do. He thinks a lot faster than I do. So I have got to work my tail. It's like me chasing Jeremy Sisto again. I've got to work my tail off to make some of these speeches work. And it is a total thrill to, at my age and this point in my career, to get something that challenges me so much.
Yeah, the energy, like my wife is your biggest fan. And so we're watching this, we're waiting for season 2 to come out. And the one thing that I wanted to say though was like, you sing in this, and I think you've been trained to sing pretty good based on the movies I've seen. Have you? Because the singing is good.
I have a lot of help. In fact, I go to my singing teacher from graduate school, Deb Lapidus, every time I'm asked to sing in something. And typically every time I'm asked to sing in something, I say, I don't sing. Why are you guys asking me to do this? Okay, I'm terrible. And what ends up happening is you do the same thing that you do for the running, for the guitar, you compartmentalize. And when you go into a recording studio, I don't have to nail everything every take. If I get enough of it right in successive takes, they could put it together. And then when you sing on the day, you've got a guide track for you that you're listening to. So you basically sing with that, and they can use either or. I guarantee they used what I did in the studio and not what I did on the day. But that being said, it goes back to training, and it goes back to your body in space. You know, making the help that I've had to make these, you know, minuscule. I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. The help that goes into creating the fantasy is extensive. Like, if you could only see the people, the horde of people behind me who are pushing in support of me to make it appear as though I'm doing one of these things myself, is hilarious. I mean, that's why the credits on movies are so long. It really does take an enormous collaborative effort to achieve these minuscule moments that bring that suspend the audience, or what is it, the suspension of disbelief. That you need those moments to get people involved in shows, right? To get people involved in plays or songs, or where they feel totally engrossed and in good hands. And so singing is certainly one that I had enormous help on. And Rudderless was different, because that was a non-singer who had a passionate and emotional reason to do his very best, which is, you know, so wildly different than playing like Russell Hammond or Steve Prefontaine, who were meant to be expert, and expert of expert, you know, even like Prodigal. Rudderless, I could use my own voice, and even then we still used a lot of technical help, and there was a shit ton of training. But that was connected to an emotional enterprise. So it was easier for me to do that than, say, something like in the morning show, where they wanted me to be able to sing well enough. And that is not something I do well enough. So there was a lot of support. But hey, get this. Okay, speaking of all the fucking amazing, it really is incredible, the things that I've had a chance to do. We recorded that fucker at Capitol Records. So I got to walk by a portrait of Marvin Gaye while I went into my recording studio to do my Not While I'm Around song for the morning show. So it was total privilege, and singing it with Jem was, wow, we had a really spectacular time. Well, wonderful coach here in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
There's a great book for you to write now. Is like, it should be like how I pieced together my career, you know, all these little pieces, these samples or whatever, and had to be an expert, right? That's a book. That's a Malcolm Gladwell book for you.
That's right. The 30-second expert.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, well, listen,
wait, that doesn't sound good when I say it out loud. Take that one back.
Well, Billy, listen, man, obviously we could stay on with you for hours right now. We want to be respectful of your time, but can't thank you enough for coming on and doing this. I know it's been such weird times this last year, and it's just great to get on with someone and laugh and smile and see that familiar face. I know for me, the thing, you know, I closed my club this last year, and, you know, I don't miss the club. I miss the people, you know, and you're top of that list. So thanks for being awesome. Love you to death, brother. Thank you.
Brother, the feeling is absolutely mutual. And I'm so grateful to you for any number of reasons, and closing that club, it breaks my heart. It really does. Not the least of which, because just like in this conversation, I get to spend a little bit of time feeling like some kind of jock, and every actor wants that in some way or another. I mean, I grew up, you know, passionate about athletes and athletics, and to get to be around people who are actually athletes, it's a thrill for me. So I'll miss that, but we'll find another iteration.
This ain't over. Yeah. This ain't over. This is just the pause button. We're just hitting the pause button.
Well, and this is an extension to be able to talk to you guys about running. You know, is actually it's cool for me. So awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I just I just want to thank you for your films and all that. And I understand that maybe Tom Cruise was going to play Prefontaine, and thank goodness you played him.
Okay.
Would have been a different film.
Listen, he is not only a spectacular runner, but he also produced that. So he was there from time to time. He actually buzzed the stadium in his biplane at one point when he was coming in.
Is that waving as he's flying?
Speaking of exotic moments,
as you're running 400s.
As we're doing 400s, I'm like, what is this sound interruption? Oh, it's our producer.
It's Tom Cruise giving you the finger out of his plane. It's very funny.
Yeah,
very funny.
Something else. That was incredible. He was awesomely supportive of me though in that too. So he's a big reason why I was there too.
I love it.
Great.
I love it. Thank you again, Derek. Thank you, Billy. I'll share this with you when it's out. It's fantastic. We can't thank you enough, brother.
All right, fellas. So great talking to you.
All right, brother.
Thank you. Take care.
All right. Take care.